Thank you. Yesterday he introduced me as the 2007 GQ magazine cover. So it's kind of gone downhill from there. I do wear two hats, so I'm usually conflicted. But hopefully today we'll have a little bit of fun. I don't know, we're in a real estate class, right? Okay. So I thought I'd start by giving away a few free houses. Anybody else want a free house? I can't throw that far. Okay, so don't say you didn't get anything. We do at the end of the class have 4 books we're giving away. Not books that I authored, but I'm good buddies with 2 of the speakers that were here yesterday, Matt Sorensen and Mark Kohler. And they said, hey Ken, you're welcome to give away a couple of our books at the end of the class. So I don't know if you've got business cards, but if you brought a business card, just pass them to the end of the rows and I'll have either Brittany or Taylor or somebody pick them up. And then we'll do a little raffle at the end. And if we only have 4 business cards, that works. I'll just give each of you a book. How many attended my classes yesterday? A few of you? That's amazing. I wouldn't probably attend 2 of my classes, so that's a good thing. But great to be here. There was a little confusion. The book says that I'm teaching a class on the practical side of real estate syndications, which I talked about yesterday. And then what I thought I was teaching was how to invest in real estate using self-directed retirement accounts. So what I've done is I blended the 2. And we're going to talk a little bit about self-directed IRAs and 401ks, stuff like that. And then we're going to get into some syndication stuff and how I do things in our company and give you some ideas on different projects we're involved with. So did everybody get the handout? No. Who doesn't have a copy of that? So Brittany will hand those out.
Just keep your hands raised, sorry.
I just have to say special thanks and a shout out to Brittany, who's my assistant, and Stephanie, who handles all of our technology and PowerPoint presentations, a bunch of things like that. And Taylor, who we commandeered her. She's attending class at Utah State University, and she does a lot of our videography work. So we're putting these online in our company. So anyway, to get started, a little bit about me. I have a bachelor's degree from BYU in accounting and an MBA from the University of Utah, which makes it difficult to know who to cheer for sometimes. But I'm also president of our organization called the Overland Group, and president of a national association called the National Association of Real Estate Advisors, which we affectionately know as NAREA. You may or may not know this, but most commercial real estate agents are not affiliated with NAR, the National Association of Realtors. And a lot of times they don't want to do that because they don't want to be confused with the residential real estate agents. And so we formed an organization to kind of represent them, plus represent any investors that have an interest in knowing more about commercial real estate investing. And our company teaches real estate professionals, investors how to list, lease, sell, buy, and invest in commercial real estate. We offer two membership programs. Can you see okay? Am I in the way of your screen? Of the screen at all? Be all right? Where else can I stand that would work better? Is this okay?
You're good.
All right, I can go over here, but it looks a little weird, doesn't it? So we have a basic membership that's free, or we have a paid membership for $199 a year, and at the show, we're giving a discount on that to $150 to 25% discount. So if you decide to go on our website, which is nariagroup.org, you could sign up for that pro membership. If you use the code Summit 2019, you'll get the discount. So, and some of the member benefits, we give everybody, basic and pro members, the monthly e-newsletter, and they can get into our free podcasts and webinars and all of that, all of our information, our newsletters. But if you become a pro member, you get to take advantage of affiliate discounts. We have several affiliate partners that offer discounts to our members. We have a place where you can put a personal profile on who you are. You also get 20% off on all our educational classes. We offer a designation called Certified Commercial Advisor, CCA. It's a 12-course program, 36 hours of content telling you all about commercial real estate. And then you get free forms and checklists. And those forms, we're putting them on now, but they're fillable. So if you had a commercial real estate transaction you were doing, you could get on there and find a form and fill it out online, print it up, and then use it for a transaction that you were doing. And we also have some investment analysis tools that if you wanted to determine what the return was on any particular investment, you go in there, you plug in your information, and it automatically feeds that information through the various forms and investment analysis documents, and eventually gets to, here's the return that you can expect on that investment. So pretty cool stuff. Our company that I have owned and operated now for more years than I care to count, but we're past 30 years, let me say that. I have two sons that run different aspects of our company. One son that graduated in construction management, got an MBA. He runs the construction side of our company. And then another son who was an auditor with Ernst & Young. He's come on board as, he's a CPA, come on board as kind of our chief financial officer of the company. So we do short-term real estate loans, construction development, property management, brokerage. We put in the back here 3 of our offerings that we're doing. I won't talk any about them, but there are pages if it's something that you have an interest in, maybe investing in. The Coyote Creek and 3000 Senior Living, which is an assisted living project in Mesa, those have a minimum investment of $50,000, and those are for accredited investors only. And our Overland self-storage project that we're building in Mesa also is for both accredited and non-accredited investors, and that minimum amount's $25,000. So now you know everything about me. Let's get into the class. How many of you have an IRA or a 401k account? Oh, a bunch of you. Mainly IRAs? How many are IRAs? How many are 401ks? Okay, so we got some with both. That's awesome. And many plan owners many plan owners that have these kind of products don't really know much about the companies that they work with. I usually get a show of hands, and I've had some that have told me, well, I think my plan is with Fidelity, or I really don't know the name of the manager that handles my account, but it's a stockbroker. I just go to my company. Have you had those kinds of experiences at all? Some shaking their head no, some yes, but I found that in most cases, these IRAs and 401k plans are some of the most mismanaged accounts on the planet. If you don't have control of your own account, then it creates some serious problems. I had one guy several years ago call me up and said, I just retired, I've got $2 million in my 401k account, and my stockbroker is ripping me off. I'm not making 2% on my account, he's taking more money than I'm earning. And he said, I need some help. So that's what started getting me into all of this stuff, and we'll talk about a bunch of just practical ideas today. You're welcome to, even though this is a large class, if you have a comment or you feel like you have a question as we go through this, I've set aside a little time at the end for Q&A, but I don't mind just fielding questions as we go through the information. So it's usually more helpful. And I was thinking the other day about these types of accounts and said to myself, would I let my stockbroker or my financial planner who manages my retirement account have access as a co-signer to my checkbook? And I don't think there are many of us out there that would say, okay, I'm going to give him access to my personal checkbook. And yet we turn around and we give him access to the most important account we have in our lives, a lot of times. And these guys are known for charging exorbitant fees. They don't have any accountability. They don't have a vested interest in what you're doing. So it really creates a difficult situation to earn a reasonable return on those accounts. Has anybody found that to be the case, or am I just kind of up here talking on my own? That is the case. Well, that's what I've found. So most fund managers and financial planners, and we probably have some in here, so I apologize if I'm saying this and you're not one of these guys, but a lot of times they suck the life out of your account. Makes it really hard to earn a good return because they're taking their fees all off of the top, and they keep part of your account liquid so that they can continue to pay their fees. And you get what's left over, whatever that amounts to. So usually the asset management fee has a tendency to really kill a return. But there is a better way. Self-directed retirement accounts. How many of you have a self-directed retirement account? Okay, several of you. So I'm even going to talk about the good and the bad of self-directed retirement accounts and where I think you might want to consider putting your money. These are things that I do from a practical standpoint. So they're 1,000 times better than retirement accounts managed by somebody else. In my opinion, you can make a lot more money from them. That doesn't mean they're perfect. They allow you more control over your investment. They allow you to maximize your returns, and they limit the fees. So, I passed out a handout here. I don't know if anybody's talked about, and I know Mike and Matt Sorensen talked a lot about the compliance side. I guess, how many of you attended his class? Okay, a few of you. So we will review a few compliance things, but I'm not going to get too deep in the woods on that. But if you look at that list, you would be amazed at all of the things that you can invest in with your IRA or 401k account. All the ones on the left are real estate related. All the ones on the right are non-real estate related. The surprising thing is you can do everything in a self-directed retirement account that you can in any other retirement account, plus everything else you can do in real estate. So if you do have a self-directed retirement account, you have to use a third-party administrator usually. Those of you that have self-directed accounts, who's your custodian TPA, third-party?
Fidelity.
Fidelity?
Corporate, I work for corporations, so I have no choice. And you reach a certain age, you can self-direct. Up until that point, you can't.
There you go.
IRA Club.
IRA Club? I haven't heard of them.
UDirect.
UDirect?
I use Zia, it's XIA.
Excellent. My word, you guys are using companies I don't know much about. We captured that, so I'm going to check into them. But the ones that I've used, the big ones, Equity Trust, the N Trust Group, they're the two biggest out there. The one I really like the best, besides Matt Sorens's program, which is relatively new, it's called Directed IRA. And so I haven't had much experience with that because we just rolled it out this past year. But Mountain West IRA out of Boise, I found to be a really good group. And I've done a lot of business with them. So referred a ton of clients to them. So
What were the first two you mentioned?
Equity Trust, yeah. They go by trustetc.com or .org, I think. And then the other one is called the N Trust Group. What? ENTRUS. EN, yeah. So, and both of those are really good companies, but when it comes to investing in real estate, not all retirement accounts are created equal. 401k accounts are far superior than IRA accounts. Okay, when it comes to earning more and being able to directly invest in income producing real estate. How many have heard that before? Okay, just one person. I discovered this as I was starting to learn how to teach these classes several years ago. And I thought, I kept bumping up against some issues with IRAs and how to deal with real estate. And you may not know this, but every real estate, the IRS permits every IRA and every 401k to be self-directed. The list that I have given you are all IRS approved accounts. Well, and so you have to ask yourself, if you've got your account with Fidelity or somebody else, how come I don't get to invest in all these things? You don't get to invest in those things because the company that you put your IRA with will not permit it. It has nothing to do with the IRS or what they permit. So they limit the accounts that you can invest in. They don't want you to invest in real estate directly because they don't earn a fee. And it's a bigger management headache for them. So they just deal in publicly traded stocks and bonds, stuff like that, and preclude you from being able to invest in those kind of accounts. So IRAs are subject to two different types of taxes. The 401k accounts are not. Unrelated business income tax and unrelated debt financed income. Have you heard those two terms before? Yes.
Yes, definitely. And what I was going to ask you would be if, as we talk about the various options for investing from an SIRA, if you could make sure to flag some of those that are going to generate rebate, because there are plenty that won't, but there are those that will, and county taking a close look at that for this tax season. I can
any income producing commercial or residential real estate property that you buy with your IRA that has debt on it is subject to unrelated business income taxes and unrelated debt financed income, depending on how much debt you put on the property. Nobody likes to talk about this, and I have clients that insist on investing their IRA money with me in income producing real estate. And so I don't discourage them from doing that for two reasons. One, I still think we can earn double the return that they could earn even with these two tax liabilities. And then on the projects that we get involved with, I make sure I do everything I can to minimize those taxes, and I can show you some ways of how that gets minimized. Yes.
Can I set up a solo 401k if I'm eligible, which we are, and roll my IRA balances into that?
Absolutely. You can set up a 401k and roll your IRA balances in. Do you have a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA?
We have two traditional IRAs, one self-directed, one isn't. And so I'm thinking about setting up a solo 401k and roll that.
Okay. I didn't do a slide on this, but there are two types of IRAs, two types of 401ks. There's a traditional, which is you get a tax deduction when you make your contribution, and a Roth, and you don't get a tax deduction because you make your contribution after tax. The Roth is a better account. You can do the same thing on 401ks. Make your contributions pre-tax, and that's called a traditional 401k, and you can make your contributions after tax. That's called a Roth 401k. And whoever your administrator is has to help you keep track of that. But the benefit of Roth accounts versus traditional accounts is when you have a Roth 401k, first of all, you're putting your money in after tax, so you can take your money out anytime you want. That's your contribution. You don't have to wait until you're 59 and a half if you have an emergency that you needed your money. The second thing is the earnings are all tax-free, period, end of story. So you never pay any capital gains tax on them. Depreciation isn't an issue. You don't worry about any of that because it is tax-free totally. But traditional IRAs, traditional 401ks, and Roth 401ks all require you to begin taking what's called required minimum distributions, RMDs, when you turn 70 and a half years old. Okay? Why they picked 70 and a half, I'll never know. But there is one account that you do not have to do that in, and that is a Roth 401k. A Roth IRA. A Roth IRA is not subject to RMDs. You never have to, when you turn 70 and a half, you can leave those in, you can let them grow, you can do whatever you want. There are some limits, there are some restrictions. So let's go back to UBIT and UDFI for just a second, talk about those, and we'll move on to some of this other stuff. But if an IRA uses debt financing to acquire real estate, the acquisition is subject to the payment of a tax on that portion of the income that's attributable to the debt financing. The other one, UBIT, relates to if you acquire a business within your IRA, but this one relates specific to real estate, which is what we're talking about. And what that means is, if you bought a piece of property and you put 30% down and you used your IRA money to do that, and then you went out and got debt for 70%, which has to be non-recourse unless to the account owner, but then 30% of that account, your IRA money, not subject to a tax. The other 70% of the income that you earn on there is subject to UDFI tax, unrelated debt financed income tax. And that is not a cheap tax. It's the trust rate, which I think is 35% right now. Okay. So the way I get around that, it's not really get around it, it's trying to minimize it for an IRA owner that wants to get in and do a real estate deal with an IRA. I always do cost segregation and depreciation. And what that does is amp up the depreciation in the early years, reduces the amount of net income that you have that's reportable to the IRS. And then you have to pay a portion of the tax on that net income. Usually in a new real estate development deal, which is what we specialize in, sometimes we do acquisitions, but I really go after cost segregation and amp up the depreciation. And usually in those first years, even though you're earning cash flow for reportable income, they can show negative income. And so they never have to hit that UBIT or UDFI taxes. That's what I do to try and minimize that for those that invest in real estate. Now I'm going to give you some ideas of what I do with my IRA here in a minute. The best type of 401k accounts is obviously the 401k. They have two different types, self-directed. They have, and we'll talk about a few of these, but 401k accounts are not subject to UBIT and UDFI. And so there is no tax. I did a little research one time trying to figure out why that was the case. Come to find out, colleges invest a lot in real estate and they use the 401ks and IRA, the 401ks of all of the employees in the college. And they were able to lobby Congress and get them to drop the tax from 401k accounts. And so really helpful for them, but it's helpful for any of us that want to do a 401k. If you're a real estate professional, how many of you are like brokers? Okay, or real estate agents or something. All right, several of you. So if you're a real estate professional or an independent contractor, independent contractor, a salesman type for almost any organization, the best retirement account you can have is what's called a one participant 401k. Okay, there are 3 requirements to have a one participant 401k. And I noticed some of you are taking copious notes. That's good. But let me say this, first of next week, I've written a white paper on this whole thing, about 15 pages of information. Everything that's contained in my slides is contained in that white paper. If you go into our nariagroup.org account, sign up as a basic free member, you'll have access to that white paper. You can download it as a PDF and have it available to you. All of my 3 presentations are on there. So that might make it easier and you can drill down on any of this information we're talking about today. So you have to have the presence of self-employment activity, taxable compensation during the year, and the absence of full-time employees. So how do you set one of these up? Because a 401k, unlike IRAs, which is directly related to the individual, a 401k has to be related to an entity, an ownership entity. So I set up an LLC, completely separate from everything else. And, or this is how I would do it. My situation is more complicated because I have employees, but I have our whole 401k account with all of our employees set up as self-directed. So every individual employee is self-directed through the 401k. The LLC has to have earned income that they pay you, and you can contribute 100% of whatever you're paid into your 401k up to the limits. And I believe it's 18,500 this year. It used to be 18, so I think it went up a little bit this year. But 18.5 as an employee, you can contribute. You can contribute up to almost 54,000 in one of these accounts, but the other 35,000 or so that you put in there has to go in as a traditional contribution. The other can go in as a Roth. So you wind up mixing a little bit depending on how much you put in there. Yes.
If you, can you do that for last year, for 2018, if you already have an account set up?
401ks, you have to make a contribution by December 31st. IRAs, they let you make the contribution up to April 15th of the following year. So you can make an IRA contribution for 2018, but you've lost the window for a 401k for 2018. You have to start now. What's our time, by the way? How are we doing? Okay, so I think we're doing okay. Did somebody else have a question?
That's one other part of that.
You only get one question.
This is part B.
Okay, part B, all right.
Is that subject to self-employment? Because we have that, but I never pay myself anything, because, I don't want to. But in this case, I do.
Yes.
Would I be subject to self-employment?
You'd be subject to the taxes related to whatever earned income is in that account. So you have to take that into consideration when you're doing it, yeah. So, by far the best retirement plans are funded with Roth contributions rather than traditional contributions. And here are some important rules and restrictions governing any IRA or 401k self-directed account. The first set are called prohibited investments. You can't invest in life insurance, except annuities, collectibles and antiques like wine, stamps, coin collections. Certain types of coins are permitted. That's why you see some of these gold companies doing this. They're buying their coins from the government, who is minting them, and then they're selling them to you. And your personal residence. So you can't invest in your personal residence. You can't invest in a second home with your retirement account and then you go live in it, okay? And there are certain types of transactions that are prohibited. You can't deal with a disqualified person. We'll explain that in a minute. The companies that are controlled, you can't deal with companies that are controlled by a disqualified person. You can't lend money between your retirement account and a disqualified person. And you can't use your retirement account as collateral for a loan you want to take out. Okay? Those are all prohibited transactions. So, who is disqualified to your IRA or 401k account? Anybody that you have a lineal relationship with. You know, you as the account holder, believe it or not, are disqualified. A disqualified person to your account. Your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and their spouses, your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and their spouses. The fiduciary that manages your account is service provider, or, you know, somebody that's giving you advice. And so I've chosen not to be a fiduciary or a service provider because I want to be able to earn fees from the IRAs and 401ks that people invest with. So anyway, there is one couple interesting twists in here. Do you see uncles and aunts, brothers and sisters? You can invest with all of them. The other thing that kind of is a little bit deceiving is one thing that you can do with your IRA or 401k is you can invest in a project at the same time and put private money in at the same time you put retirement money into the same new investment. Where they talk about self-dealing is they don't want you to buy with your IRA a home from a home that you own. You know, they don't want you to buy a $300,000 home and sell it to your IRA for $1. You know, so they restrict any of those kind of activities. But if you and your IRA are going into a new project at the same time, you can invest with it. So key points when buying real estate with a self-directed retirement account. The retirement or the real estate owned by the retirement plan must be held for investment. No disqualified persons can live in the property. The income derived from the property is paid directly to the retirement account. When you purchase real estate, the retirement account must be listed on the purchase contract as the buyer. All funds due to the seller must be paid by the retirement account. Any financing obtained to acquire the property must be non-recourse to the account owner. Does anybody know what I mean by that? What is the term non-recourse? Yes.
It just means it's not personal guaranteed, so they can't come after you if the project goes south.
Exactly. So you can't personally guarantee a piece of real estate that you're buying. But, and this is what I do, I put together real estate transactions where I'm the personal guarantor and none of the IRAs or 401ks are. So it's non-recourse to them, even though it's recourse to me. And that makes it possible for somebody that has an IRA or 401k to invest and meet the qualifications. So, and retirement accounts can invest in limited liability companies. Unlike a 1031 tax deferred exchange, they have to do what's called a like kind of exchange, but retirement accounts can invest in buy ownership and LLCs. Types of self-directed retirement accounts, I've listed them here. I'll just highlight a few. Tax deeds and tax liens, real estate options, real estate investment trusts, both public and private, residential real estate investment, that includes fix and flips, single family homes, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes. You can invest in promissory notes, hard money loans, commercial real estate, retail. I do triple net leases, office buildings, multifamily apartments, medical, that's assisted living or medical office, land, industrial, self-storage, hospitality. You can invest in a ton of things. All of them are permitted. So here's how I set up our deals. And I put together what's called a real estate syndication. I mentioned the other day, it has nothing to do with the mafia, by the way. It's just a term where a sponsor and a group of investors pool their money together to buy a project that's bigger than they could do on their own. And most of our projects are start at a couple $1 million and go up to as high as 30 million. The three that I put little offering things on back there, or little brochures on. I have one that's about 8 million and the other two are, one's about 20 and one's about 30 million. And we're raising just the equity portion, not the debt portion of that. So it winds up being about 25% of what the total value is what gets raised in equity capital. So these projects that I do are regulated by the SEC, and because an LLC, a real estate project that's owned inside an LLC is called a security. The LLC is a security, not the real estate. So the SEC regulates those darn things. Any entity like that that's tradable, I call a security. And so to avoid having to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to register these offerings, we fall under an exemption, which is called Rule 506 of Regulation D of the Securities and Exchange Act, or the Securities Act of 1933. And if you follow Rule 506, you can do these without registering them with the SEC. So we have a securities attorney, and we work very hard at knowing how to do that. When you do that, if you have all accredited investors, you can do general solicitation, but if you have if you have up to 35 non-accredited investors, then you are prohibited from doing any general solicitation. But you can have an unlimited number of accredited investors and up to 35 non-accredited in these. So we watch the types of projects we do, and some we offer with non-accredited investors that we permit to come into our deal. Some of the smaller projects, they still earn the same good returns, and some of the bigger projects are all limited to accredited investors. And we put together a private placement memorandum or private offering memorandum because we want to provide full disclosure. Yes?
What is a sophisticated investor?
That is a really great question, and it's pretty funny, actually. The SEC doesn't define that term. And so it's left to all of us to try and figure it out. Okay? I think what they're trying to say, and no disparagement to grandma or grandpa, because I am one. I maybe should have said I are one. But if you get somebody that maybe inherited a bunch of money and they don't know how to analyze these financial projects, then you're in deep trouble if you go after somebody like that, take their money, lose it for them, and the SEC finds out about it. So sophisticated means that you either have the ability to analyze a financial investment yourself or the financial resources to hire somebody to do it on your behalf, like a tax attorney, accountant, somebody like that. Yeah.
What's the dividing line where you have to all this as opposed to, let's say, have a family member or a friend who's formed a partnership, so when do you?
If you're buying the real estate itself and you're doing it as individuals, you're not subject to this. The minute you say partnership, form a legal document, you're into this. By law. But from a practical standpoint, does the SEC have time to go after every family members that are trying to put these deals together? They don't. But full disclosure is a real key. An accredited investor earns has $1 million in net worth, excluding their home, or they have earned income of $200,000. If it's a couple that's investing together, it's $300,000. So we have, 4 minutes, and I'm going to give you just a couple little quick examples of deals I've done. I showed these the other day on a slide when we were talking about 1031 investors, because I don't know anybody else that does quite what I do, but I figured out how to take a 1031 investor and how to take IRA and 401k investors and private individual investors that are investing discretionary income and marry them all in the same project, and nobody fights about it, which is kind of cool. And so the thing I want to say here is we did a big lot store up in Helena, Montana, put several IRA and 401k investors in it, and they can, unlike the 1031, who has to buy the real estate directly, IRA or 401k can buy an interest in the LLC that owns the real estate asset. Another one we did that has several IRA and 401k investors is a project we did at Woods Cross, another one we did in West Jordan. We're doing another one in Mesa, Arizona. So we're just growing this part of our brand, which we're excited about. But that kind of is a presentation. Any other questions we haven't answered? What did you think? Did you learn anything new? Why don't I end with what I do with my accounts? Which is a little bit more, it's probably the most sophisticated approach you can take, and you really shouldn't be doing this unless you have a lot of experience at this. I formed an LLC. Both my wife and I have IRAs, Roth IRAs. And years ago, I converted my traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, paid the taxes on it, and said I'm done with that program. And so we both have Roth IRAs, we both have Roth 401k accounts. Every year we contribute the maximum to both of those accounts. Once I got a certain amount of money pooled together, I took those 4 accounts, created an LLC. They each bought an ownership interest in that LLC. And so they got, like stock, it's not, they call them units in an LLC, they don't call them shares. But they each bought units in that LLC. So the money came into the LLC, and I'm the manager of the LLC. So I don't have to go through my self-directed third-party administrator when I want to write a check on that account or pay a bill out of that account. I handle and control that LLC that has all of the money in there. And I can't, it would be self-dealing for me to buy an interest in my own project that I am personally guaranteeing the loan on. I take that pooled money and I lend it to others, and I am earning 2 points and 12% on the investments that I put out. And it's mainly guys that want to do fix and flips. People that I'm familiar with and know how to work with. But we take a deed of trust and they sign a promissory note. I am generally earning about 50, if you count the points that I take and the interest rate, I'm earning about 15% on that account. So it's doubling about every 7 years. So that's what I'm doing with my IRA and 401k. If I could invest it, which I would love to do, if I could invest it in my own personal accounts, I would rather get it in there because I can earn almost double what I could get outside of that with investments. Most of our investments are clicking off about 20 to 25%. And so I would much rather have it in one of my personal accounts to do that. So I invest a lot of discretionary income into personal real estate investments. But I don't know if that's helpful. Yes.
So once they buy shares in this LLC and you want to contribute the following year to your Roth, then
You have to contribute on the same percentage as every one of the accounts that you put in there, if that makes sense.
yeah, but you would be contributing directly to the Roth, and the Roth would.
You contribute to the Roth, and the Roth would buy more shares than the LLC. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. One more question, we're done.
How did you get started in syndication? Like, did you partner with someone? Did you just research it?
Well, I'm LDS, so I won't say that I was drinking one night. But I started thinking about all this stuff, and one of the first projects I did was we had an opportunity. We have a construction company. We had an opportunity to build a Family Dollar store in Thermopolis, Wyoming. If none of you have been in Thermopolis, it's pretty fun. And I thought, how do I raise the $250,000 I have to raise on this little store for the equity capital. I had a lender lined up. And John Gillane, who's with Mountain West IRA, said, come on up to Boise and give a little presentation to our group. And we went up there, gave a presentation on what we were doing, and walked out of there with the project fully funded. And I thought, hot dog. I didn't even know, I'm a real estate guy, and I didn't know any of this was going on. And so that's when I started learning, and at that time, there wasn't anybody that was teaching any of this stuff. So I thought, I've got to teach real estate guys how to do this. And that was the formation of NARIA. It started there and it grew from that point. So it's kind of cool, and that's how I got started and been doing it ever since. Now we raised several $1 million through that platform. But thanks, everybody.